Lieutenant Mara Reyes stood at the viewport of Station Auriga, watching the twin suns sink below the horizon of the nearby gas giant. The glow of starlight danced on her face, and she felt a quiet thrill at being so far from Earth. Each day, she ran experiments on exotic particles that shimmered like liquid light, hoping to unlock new energy sources for humanity. Yet tonight, her thoughts drifted beyond science. A sense of wonder stirred in her chest, and she could not name its cause. Behind her, the station's hum was steady and reassuring until a sudden alert pierced the calm. Red lights flashed along the corridor, and an alarm's soft chime echoed. Through the lab, Mara's heart beat faster as she turned to face the console. The containment field around the particle sample was flickering. If it failed, the sample could destabilize, and the lab could lose power. She pressed a sequence of commands with practiced ease, her fingers dancing over the controls. Outside, distant stars blinked innocently, unaware of the trouble inside. As the emergency screens displayed shifting graphs and flashing warnings, Mara steadied her breath. She reached out to adjust the field's frequency, her brow furrowed. Then, through the frosted glass of the containment chamber, she saw him. He was unlike any life form she had ever studied Toll, with sleek limbs and skin that seemed to catch the light like polished metal. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Pulse. Two pools of opal iridescence that faded from violet to silver with every subtle motion. Time slowed. Mara's hand hovered over the controls as her gaze locked with those otherworldly eyes. In that single moment, she felt a gentle pull deep in her chest, as if a silent current had reached out between their souls. Warmth spread through her limbs, and her mind hummed with questions and emotions she could not yet understand. She blinked, and Xerxes later learned that was his name tilted his head, mimicking her movement. The containment alarm still glowed behind her, but all her attention was on him. The lights in the corridor shifted from red back to green as the containment field stabilized. A soft beep announced the emergency was over. Mara exhaled a breath. She did not realize she was holding. She pressed the final override, and the chamber settled into a gentle glow. She closed the console and turned toward the center of the lab. Xar stood just beyond the glass, watching her with those opal eyes. Even in the sterile white light, his form held an impossible grace. Every other sound faded away. Mara found herself walking forward, drawn by curiosity and something more profound she could not yet name. Each step felt guided by an unseen hand. She reached the glass barrier and raised her palm, as if to touch the other side. Ixer did the same. His fingers pressed against the glass where hers rested. At that precise moment, Mara's mind opened to a single, pure emotion: recognition. She felt as though she had known him for lifetimes, even though he was a complete stranger. The bond was silent yet unbreakable. Behind them, the station's crew busied themselves with post-alert checks, but Mara saw nothing but Ixer's luminous eyes. She felt a promise in their depths, a promise of stories waiting to be shared and secrets waiting to be revealed. As the twin suns finally disappeared and darkness settled around Auriga, Mara pressed her forehead against the glass, closing her eyes. She could still feel him there, across the barrier, and in that moment, she understood that her life and perhaps all of humanity's future was about to change forever. Late in the artificial night of Station Auriga, Mara Reyes lay alone in her small quarters, her body resting but her mind alive with vivid color. In her dream, she and Ixer walked hand in hand through a field of starlight that rippled beneath, their feet like liquid glass. The air shimmered with soft music made of distant suns, and every note seemed to pulse through Mara's chest, filling her with a warmth she had never known. She felt Ixer's gentle strength beside her all, and graceful, his opal eyes reflecting galaxies, and she knew, without doubt, that he trusted her completely. They spoke without words, sharing memories of homeworlds far apart, yet bound by the same longing for connection. In one moment, Mara tasted the scent of Ixer's planet, a sweet mist of silver blooms and warm dust. In the next, Ixer felt the hum of the particle lab and the careful way Mara had adjusted the containment field just moments before. Their thoughts joined like strands of light, weaving a new tapestry of shared understanding. When Mara awoke, her heart thudded in her ribs as though it might leap clear from her body and seek Ixer across the void. She blinked into the pale glow of her quarters and pressed her palm against her chest where the emotions still throbbed. They're etched in faint scarlet lines on her skin. She found a strange symbol, a spiral of 3 interlocking loops that pulsed softly as if alive. She touched it with trembling fingers and felt a rush of calm. The symbol burned with the same violet to silver shimmer she had seen in Ixer's eyes. She knew in that instant that the dream had not been mere imagination. Their minds had somehow reached across the barrier of species and station walls and left a lasting mark on her very flesh. With a deep breath, she dressed quickly and hurried back to the lab, her thoughts racing as fast as the emergency lights had flashed the night before. At the doorway to the containment chamber, she paused, uncertain how to greet the being who had touched her soul. Ixor stood beyond the glass, his head tilted in emotion that felt like curiosity and welcome all at once. When Mara raised her hand, the spiral on her palm flared to life, and Ixer's body glowed with a soft inner light. He pressed a finger to the glass where her palm rested, and warmth bloomed between them, soft as dawn. The connection pulsed again, and Mara heard a whisper in her mind that sounded like her own voice, echoing across a quiet canyon. I remember. Her breath caught as memories she had never lived filled her senses fields of crystal towers. Under twin moons, the laughter of Ixer's childhood friends, the first time he learned to shape energy with his mind. At the same moment, she felt him absorb her own memories, her first step onto the station. The thrill of discovering new particles, the quiet ache of missing her home on Earth. Tears sprang to her eyes as she realized how deeply their souls had intertwined. The world around them, the hum of generators, the distant chatter of crew members performing. Routine checks receded until all that existed was the fragile connection bridging human and alien. Mara knew she should call for the xenopsychologist or alert her commanding officer, but she stayed where she was, rooted to the spot by a sense of profound destiny. When the symbol on her palm finally dimmed to match the ambient light, she looked up at Ixer and saw her own amazement mirrored in his luminous eyes. In that moment of shared wonder, Mara felt hope blossom, fierce and bright. She no longer felt alone in the vast emptiness of space. She had found someone who understood her in ways no human ever could. Beyond the glass, Ixer inclined his head, and Mara bowed her forehead to the barrier, offering her trust and heart without reservation. As the station's soft bells signaled the end of the shift, they remained locked together by more than just a dream or a symbol they were bound by. The knowledge that their souls had always been connected, that together they would uncover secrets that might change the fate of both their worlds. Mara stood in the observation lounge as the morning light filtered through the wide viewports. Every corner of Station Auriga felt different now. The humming engines and soft beeps of machinery held a new meaning for her. They were part of a bigger song, one she now shared with Ixer. She carried the memory of his violet silver eyes with her like a secret treasure. The station's chief xenopsychologist, Dr. Celine Vance, arrived with a gentle knock and warm smile. Lieutenant Reyes, she said, I've never seen anything like this bond. May I run some tests? Mara nodded. She trusted Dr. Vance's calm voice. Behind them, Ixor waited beyond the glass of a special containment suite adapted for his physiology. Dr. Vance placed sensors around Mara's temples and wrists. We're measuring brainwaves and heart rhythms, she explained. Let's see how your patterns sync with Ixer's. Mara felt a flicker of nerves, but remembered how safe she felt with Ixer in her mind. She closed her eyes and let calm wash over her. Across the glass, Ixer mirrored her stillness. His eyes glowed softly as he rested one hand gently against the inner wall of his suite. Mara imagined his hand, felt its warmth. On her side, the sensors recorded her heartbeat slowing, her breathing even. Dr. Vance watched the readings on a portable display, her eyebrows rising in wonder. These readings are extraordinary, Dr. Vance murmured. Your heart rates are matching to the millisecond. Your brain patterns show mirrored alpha waves. It's as if you share a single mind in some moments. She scribbled notes. Such synchronicity could revolutionize how we communicate across species. Mara opened her eyes and saw Ixer watching her. His head tilted slightly, the motion gentle and curious. She lifted her hand, and he did the same. Even through the thick glass, Mara felt their pulsa, shared rhythm that hummed like a soft drum. It echoed in her chest and reminded her how linked they were. After the session, Dr. Vance guided Mara to a small lab table. "I want to analyze the symbol on your palm," she said. With careful instruments, she shone a low-energy scanner across the spiral of loops. These loops contain biophotonic traces identical to Ixar's energy signature. What? It isn't just a mark. It's a bridge woven from his life force and yours. Mara shivered with wonder. Ixar's form shimmered as if he sensed her excitement. Even behind reinforced glass, he pressed his palm flat, meeting hers on the opposite side. Mara felt a gentle charge pass through her fingertips. Warm, alive, inviting. Motions she could not name washed through her. Awe, gratitude, a deep longing. She wanted to understand all of Ixar's memories and share every human feeling in return. That night, during her watch on the bridge, Mara replayed every detail of the tests. The stars outside seemed closer, as though they bent around the station to watch. She knew that others would soon see her bond with Ixar as a scientific phenomenon, curiosity to study. But to her, it was so much more. It was the start of a friendship that transcended species. A soft chime announced an incoming distress beacon from a nearby colony. The message was garbled, but urgent. Without waiting for orders, Mara tapped her console. "Patch it through," she requested. The bridge officer complied, and the static cleared to reveal panicked voices. "Engineer team trapped. Our failure. Need assistance." Mara felt Ixar's concern like a mirror in her mind. She stood and said, "I'll lead an away team. Sir and I will go." The officer hesitated. "Lieutenant, that's unauthorized," Mara cut in, voice steady. "We can help them. Together, we can handle anything." She turned and walked toward the airlock, heart steady, mind clear. Behind her, Ixar's form glowed softly as he stepped. Beside her, the glass door slid open, and they crossed into the shared suit chamber. Engineers fitted them with protective gear, one adapted for Ixar's shape. When the outer hatch opened, cold starlight and thin air greeted them. But Mara felt only warmth from the bond she shared with eyes, as they descended toward the colony's shadowed corridors. Mara sensed every pulse of Ixar's heart, every whisper of his thoughts. In return, he felt the determination in her mind, her resolve to protect and to learn. Together they moved as one, two souls woven by fate and science. And in that moment, Mara knew their journey was only beginning. The airlock hissed shut behind Mara, Reyes, and Ixar as they stepped onto the dark, abandoned corridors of Colony Outpost Vega 12. The emergency lights cast long. Trembling shadows on walls scuffed by hurried footsteps and overturned equipment. Mara's heart beat with a fierce mix of fear and purpose. She tightened her grip on the comm device at her belt, willing a clear signal back to Station Auriga. Yet in her mind, she felt Ixar's calm reassurance, like a soft radiance guiding her steps. Together, they fell into an unspoken rhythm, his graceful stride matching her determined pace. They reached the central lab, where shattered glass glinted like tiny stars across the floor. The scent of spent ozone tingled in the air, and a low hum of dying machinery echoed in the silence. Engineers crouched by a fallen console. Their faces were pale with shock and relief when they saw Mara. "Power core is unstable," one said, voice trembling. "We can't reroute energy fast enough." Mara knelt beside him, placing a steady hand on his shoulder. Ixar stood behind, transparent traces of his biolight pulsing softly as he studied the damaged core interface. Mara's mind raced as she read the engineer's report. A prototype reactor had been pushed beyond safe. Limits to boost output for an experimental shield. The colony's leaders had hoped to guard against cosmic storms, but the design lacked proper failsafes. Now that same reactor threatened to tear the entire outpost apart. She exchanged a look with Ixar, his opal eyes mirrored her concern and steely resolve. Without hesitation, they began to plan. Mara would stabilize the human reactors, while Ixar would weave his bioenergy to patch the failing shield conduits as they worked. Alarms murmured in the background, counting down like distant thunder. Sweat beaded on Mara's brow as she rerouted the power lines. Ixer hovered by the main conduit, extending a slender arm of glowing energy that intertwined with the exposed wires. Mara felt the warmth of his help coursing through the cables, lending stability where metal and human tech faltered. For a moment, all was still except for the gentle hymn of combined power, human ingenuity, and alien grace blended into a single humming pulse. Then the ground trembled. A sharp crack split the silence as the reactor core hiccuped, threatening to release a cascade of molten energy. Mara's breath caught in her throat, but Ixer's steady presence soothed her panic. He reached through the wall of fear with his mind, sending a wave of calm confidence. Mara adjusted her focus and sealed the final circuit with a firm click. The reactor stilled, its frantic pulse slowing to a safe, steady beat. A collective exhale swept through the engineers as the emergency lights shifted from red to green dot. Exhausted yet exhilarated, Mara leaned against the console, wiping sweat from her cheek. Ixer placed a gentle hand on the glass barrier that separated his suit from hers, and she pressed her palm against his. The spiral symbol on her skin glowed softly in response, a reminder of their bond. Around them, the engineers cheered, their gratitude shining in their eyes. Yet Mara knew this victory was only the beginning. The failed experiment had been more than a simple miscalculation. It was a message. Someone had rushed the design, risking lives for unknown gains. That thought unsettled her, but Ixer sensed her worry. He tilted his head and allowed her to glimpse a memory of his homeworld, where a similar experiment had caused devastation. In shared vision, Mara saw cities collapsed under uncontrolled energy storms, and she felt the grief of Ixer's people. Tears pricked her eyes. She drew a shaky breath, determined to honor his loss by preventing the same fate here. She turned to the engineers and said, voice steady, "We need to secure all research logs and report this to headquarters. No more secrets." As they escorted the survivors toward the transport shuttle, Mara looked back at the darkened lab. The lights were bright again, but the scars on the walls remained. She squeezed Ixer's hand, feeling his light ripple in response. In that charged silence, Mara understood that trust and truth were as vital as any shield. Together, they would uncover who had endangered the outpost and why. Side by side, human and alien, they stepped into the shadowed corridor, ready to shine hope into the darkest corners of the galaxy. Mara stepped off the transport shuttle and felt relief wash over her as Station Auriga's lights came into view. After the chaos at Vega 12, she had hoped for a moment of calm. Yet as she entered the docking bay, she sensed tension in the air. Human technicians hurried past, whispering about missing data and shutdown orders. Mara's heart tightened. She knew the colony incident was more than a mistake. Someone had tried to hide the truth. She found Ixor waiting by the elevator, his calm presence a warm embrace in the cold metal hall. His opal eyes shone as he reached out to her. Mara pressed her hand to his, and the spiral on her palm glowed softly, a secret code between their souls. She leaned close and whispered, "They erased the logs." Ixer's form shimmered with concern. In his mind, she felt a flash of anger at the betrayal and fear for the station's safety. Together, they rode the lift to the research wing. The hum of machinery felt urgent now, like a heartbeat racing against time. On the lab doors, red warning. Lights blinked. Mara keyed in her access code, and the door slid open. Inside, empty consoles and cleared data ports greeted her. A faint scent of burnt circuits lingered, as if someone had tried to erase all evidence by destroying the hardware. Mara's breath caught. She sank onto a stool and covered her face with her hands. Ixer hovered beside her, his biolight brightening. The gloom. He projected images from his memory. The night they saved Vega 12. The grateful smiles of engineers and the exact schematics of the failed reactor. Mara watched each vision and knew it was proof. She straightened, determination flaring. In her chest, "Need to rebuild the data," she said. "We need copies of every report, every log, every experiment note." Her voice was steady and strong. Ixer nodded and lifted a hand. He guided her eyes to a hidden panel behind the workbench. Mara pressed the concealed switch, and a small data drive slid out. She remembered drilling a backup routine the week before, one that ran quietly every night. Relief bloomed in her chest. She pocketed the drive and felt Ixer's pride shining through their bond. They would have what they needed to expose the cover dash up as they worked to piece together the missing information. Mara felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She thought of her fellow crew members, trusting her to keep Station Auriga safe. She thought of Ixer, whose world had suffered similar betrayals. She thought of Earth, where people lived without knowing how close they walked to danger. Tears stung her eyes not for sadness alone, but for the strength that flickered in her heart. Hours passed in quiet collaboration. Mara scanned human logs, while Ixor translated alien research notes. Their minds met in a dance of shared purpose. Every time their hands brushed over the data drive, warmth spread through her, reminding her that they were more than colleagues, they were partners in truth. When the final file transferred, Mara exhaled a shaky breath. They had the evidence. At dawn, Station Auriga rose in soft gold light. Mara and Ixer stood on the observation deck, data drive in her hand. Below, humans and aliens worked side by side, unaware that a revelation approached. Mara turned to Ixer and saw hope gleaming in his eyes. She knew the path ahead would be hard, but she no longer feared the darkness of deceit. With his hand in hers, and the truth in her grasp, she felt brave enough to face any challenge. In that moment, the universe felt wide and full of promise. Two souls, connected beyond reason, stood ready to shine honesty into the shadows. Together, they would change the course of history, one honest truth at a time. Mara hurried through the quiet corridors of Station Auriga, Ixer floating steadily at her side. In her hand, the data drive felt heavy with truth and consequence. Her pulse raced, but she kept her steps sure. They had nearly a full day before. The station's council meeting. Mara planned to deliver the evidence, then no delays, no more secrets. They entered the council chamber, a circular room with tall windows showing the gas giant swirls beyond. The station's commander, Admiral Kestrel, sat at the head of a polished table. Her expression was polite, but guarded. Around her sat human officers and a few alien envoys, none aware of the coming storm. Mara swallowed her nerves. She set the data drive on the table, Commander, she began, voice steady. These files show who erased Vega-12's reactor logs. They outline dangerous experiments and cover-ups. The station must know the truth. She tapped the drive. A hush fell. Over the room, Admiral Kestrel's eyes narrowed. Lieutenant, that is a serious accusation. Do you have proof? Mara motioned to Ixer. He stepped forward and projected holographic images into the air, blueprints of the reactor.
Timestamp logs.
Messages ordering data deletion. Each file glowed with clear labels and dates. No one could deny what they saw. Murmur rose around the table. One officer protested. These files could be falsified. Ixer's eyes shone with gentle calm. He reached into Mara's mind and shared the moment of retrieving the backup, her relief, her certainty. The room felt still as each person sensed her sincerity and his memory. Doubt faded. Admiral Kestrel pressed her lips together. Why hide these truths? Who ordered it? Mara spoke before fear could stop her. The research director, Dr. Halverson. He wanted to push human technology beyond safe limits, id the risks. She held the commander's gaze. People died, and more could die if this continues. The commander's shoulders stiffened. She frowned, then tapped her compad. Summoned Dr. Halverson. Moments later, the door hissed open, and Halverson entered. His white uniform looked spotless, but his eyes betrayed worry. He studied the holograms and then glared at Mara. This is sabotage, he said. You're undermining progress. Mara raised her hand. Progress built on lies is no progress at all. She felt Ixer's supportive pulse in her mind. We saved Vega-12. We must stop unsafe experiments. Halverson's jaw clenched. He opened his mouth, but Admiral Kestrel raised a hand and silenced him. The commander turned to the council members. This station stands for honesty and unity. I will review these files and schedule a full inquiry. Her voice was firm. Lieutenant Reyes, you and Ixer have done your duty. The council thanks you. Relief washed over Mara, and a quiet, pride-filled Ixer's glow. Outside the council chamber, Mara and Ixer paused under the soft glow of corridor lights. Mara placed her hand on Ixer's arm. "Thank you," she whispered. He tilted his head and his eyes flickered warm silver. In that moment, wordless gratitude flowed between them. As they walked back to the lab, Mara felt lighter. The burden of hidden truths had lifted, yet she knew the inquiry would take time and challenges would come. Still, she believed in their bond and in the power of truth. With Ixer by her side, she was ready for whatever lay ahead. Together, they would guide humanity and aliens toward a safer, brighter future. As the inquiry into the reactor cover-up unfolded, Mara Reyes found herself no longer just a lieutenant but a bridge between two worlds. In the weeks that followed, she and Ixer spent long hours in the research wing, helping Dr. Vance and other experts review every experiment log. Each new discovery revealed both human hope and alien wisdom woven together in unexpected ways. Each morning, Mara came to the lab to find Ixer, already waiting by the viewport. He watched the swirling clouds of the gas giant below, his opal eyes reflecting shifting currents of light. Mara slipped her hand into his, the familiar warmth of their bond steadying her mind before a day of meetings and debates. She often thought of how far they had come since the day their eyes first met through that glass barrier. The council's inquiry was thorough. Panels of human officers and alien envoys questioned witnesses, examined data drives, and reopened sealed archives. Mara and Ixar answered questions side by side, their shared memories guiding them through every detail. They explained how they saved Vegetwelv, how they recovered erased data, and how truth had become their greatest weapon. Their story became a symbol of honesty, not just on Auriga, but across nearby colonies tuning in for updates. Outside formal sessions, Mara saw subtle shifts in the station's atmosphere. Technicians greeted Ixer by name, adjusting shared workstations so he and Mara could collaborate more easily. Scientists exchanged ideas freely, drawing on both human engineering and alien bioenergy concepts. Mara felt a quiet pride as she walked through the corridors, where fear and secrecy once ruled. Now curiosity and trust took root. One evening, after the council meeting ended for the day, Mara and Ixor stood on the observation deck. The twin suns had set, leaving only starlight to guide their steps. Mara pressed her forehead to the cool glass and felt the gentle pulse of Ixor's light behind her. She closed her eyes and breathed in the stillness of space.
House.
In her mind, she heard Ixor's soft thought, "Together, we are stronger," she smiled, tears of joy glinting at the corners of her eyes. On the day the council released its findings, a station-wide announcement brought everyone to the central hub. Mara and Ixer joined Admiral Kestrel on a raised platform. The commander's voice echoed through the chamber, "Thanks to the courage of Lieutenant Mara Reyes and Ambassador Ixer, we have uncovered the truth. We will implement new safety protocols and share our findings with all colonies. Trust will no longer be a risk, it will be our guiding star." She rose from the assembled crew, human and alien alike. Mara looked at Ixer, whose light flared in a silent laugh of delight. She felt her chest swell with happiness. This moment was theirs together, proof that two souls, connected across the void, could spark change that rippled through entire worlds. In the days that followed, Mara and Ixer led workshops to teach the new protocols. They worked with engineers to refine energy shields combining human reactors and alien biocrystals. They shared stories of their first encounter, sparking hope that others might find connection in unexpected places. Each workshop ended with their palms pressed together across a translucent barrier, the spiral symbol glowing softly, a promise of unity. As Station Auriga prepared to host the first joint human-alien conference, Mara stood at the main airlock. Ixer's form shimmered beside her. She adjusted her uniform, the badge of TerraSpace Corps gleaming on her chest. He tilted, his head in that gentle gesture she had come to know so well. In her mind, she spoke words she could not say aloud. "Thank you for choosing me." The hatch opened, and together they stepped into the corridor, the bright lights of the conference hall guiding their path. Around every corner, crews worked to welcome guests from dozens of worlds. Banners in human and alien script hung from the ceiling, declaring unity through truth. Mara felt a surge of excitement. The journey that began with a flicker in her heart had become a movement that would echo through the galaxy. Side by side, they walked into the hall, their footsteps echoed on the polished floor, a steady rhythm of two souls united. Above them, the gas giant's pale light filtered through the dome, casting gentle patterns on the crowd. As Mara and Ixer raised their hands in greeting, she knew that this was only the beginning. Their bond born of chance, forged in crisis, and sealed by truth would guide humanity to new heights. Together, they would carry their soul's connection across the stars, lighting the way for all who dared to believe in unity.